welcome to Lead Live, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire.
Greetings and happy Wednesday. And for some of you, it's Thursday already. Wherever you're at, we wish for you really what this topic today is all about. What is our topic? It's what is financial literacy? What is it about? It's about financial stability, security, strength, financial independence, freedom, abundance, wealth, assets. Fundamentally, it's about some things that's much more profound than that. Humbly speaking, it's about peace of mind. It's about free from stressors. It's about physical and emotional health. It's about spiritual freedom. See, so much of our lives are interrupted by financial concerns, financial matters. In fact, some of us can, in reflection, think of every single day thinking about money, dealing with money, being concerned about money, being excited about money. And yet, money is not the end. It's about trying to achieve or working to achieve or actually actualizing something, right? If money had no value, it would not actually have intrinsic value unless it meant something to the person who gave it to us and they meant something to us, like a parent or an organization that we committed our lives to and they bequeathed us those resources. If we couldn't do anything with those resources, we might not value money. Money is a means. It's a means of exchange. It has value because of the value that we give to it. And the most important value we give to it, we assign to it very early on, even before we understand money. And in fact, some of us use money and we still don't understand money as older folks, whether we're in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, getting ready to transition out of life, whatever that age may be, in our hundreds, for example. What is money? And the value that we tend to give to it is directly assigned with what do we want to achieve? What are our goals? Or even better, what are our dreams that has inspired a grand vision that we have operationalized in terms of a goal or goals and made a strategic plan with action steps to take that we actually take, and we're manifesting the fruits of it, and we're excited because we actually achieve aspects of it. That's why we care about money. Money in and of itself. If someone told you tomorrow that the dollar in this hemisphere literally had a zero value, I don't care how much money you'd walk away from it. Unless you had some level of assumptions or certainty that that dollar would then have some value in the future. Someone said that, in fact, that plant that's over there that you're cultivating has actual value and much more than that dollar that you hold on to, that you hope to grow, that you hope to compound. It has more value, and you have evidence of that. You're more likely to invest in cultivating that plant because of its value that you've learned. So, money. Why is money important? Beyond just what I said. We're going to come back to that. And so you see, it's about what? Protecting us. But it's much more than protecting us. You see that literally you can save money, and the younger you are at saving, the more time your money has to compound. But let's just say you save 2,000 a year and you're 25 when you started. Oh my God, with the rate of increase of 8% a year interest earned, that's what you'd have, 606,000, compared to if you started at 50 and you're 65, you'd only have approximately 65,500. This is someone else's illustration, but we've done so many illustrations. And we'd look at 2,000 a month. What would you have? But the real issue is, where are we in relationship to something bigger? When we think in terms of money, we think in terms of literally, I need money to take care of my basic expenses. And at some point, if our dollar has no value, we won't be able to take care of our basic expenses that way. We may go back to, or where some communities still are, with bartering. And there's some value to bartering. But more importantly, what do we need? What do we need to sustain our lives? What do we need to address whatever we owe to the state, the federal government, the local government within our states, municipalities, even more locally? And then what do we need to address any outstanding debt? Hopefully, if anyone of us have debt, it's what we call good debt. We'll come back to that in a second, rather than the so-called bad debt. It increasingly, too many of us have, and arguably because of the nature of what has occurred over the last few years with COVID-19 pandemic. But even prior to that, the nature of what's happened in the U.S. alone, not just other countries, but especially in the U.S., debt has been increasing. And definitely in the last couple of years, there was a trend downward, which was the good news, but it's upward again. And a lot of the debt is not necessarily good debt. I'm talking about bad debt that includes a kind of credit card debts that you're literally, all you're doing is you're paying the interest every month. Oh, I'll pay it off in time. And by the time you think about paying it off and you look at the details, you realize, oh my goodness, I bought something that was discounted. In fact, I bought a number of some things that were discounted, only to end up paying more in interest than had I paid those things with cash without them being discounted. Interesting. So a lot of us are paying credit card debt monthly, and we know that in 5 years we'll pay it off. And then we look at how much we actually use the card for, and then the interest that accrued, maybe thousands of dollars more than the uses. I want you just to remember that. Wow. So our role here at Lead Live, and among my colleagues, and there are numerous of us, is to encourage you to reduce bad debt, get to good debt, leverage other people's money, other organizations' money to make things happen, and reduce any kind of outstanding interest payments you have to make so that more of your money goes into savings. We're going to come back to this slide in a second. So it's really about dreams and goals. That's why we think about money. That's why we think about money. That's why we focus on money. So what is financial literacy? I've talked around it. I've talked about money itself and why, from my humble perspective, it's important. Let me just say this one last few words before we get into what is financial literacy. Scientists, doctors experience it all the time. The number one cause of diseases is what? Stress. The number one cause of stress, money worries. You name it, money worries. The number one cause of oh my goodness, breakup of relationships, money worries. The number one cause of, I'm just going back reflecting on different research. You don't want to know all the different research that I reflected on. If you are interested, send me a note, a line. You'll see my contact information later. The number one reason why women, when their husbands die, declare bankruptcy within 6 months to a year is because of lack of money. There's so many reasons. There's so many reasons why there's stress that leads to disease. And the number one reason for stress are money worries. And the number one reason for money worries typically is financial illiteracy. Liberally, we would say that there's 10% of the population in the United States that is financially literate. That's scary. That's just being generous. In reality, unfortunately, it's getting closer, moving closer to 5%. We, our team, are about the business of moving it to close to 100% in the most reasonable way possible, and even unreasonable ways. Leveraging you, leveraging systems, leveraging online technology, etc. So that means 90% or more, the folks within the United States, brilliant mind, brilliant, wonderful people, are financially illiterate. And let me tell you, until recently, smart as I think I am, in 2 PhD programs, a college president, achieved a lot, did much more than even I thought I could do, even at the age of 10, although my heart was open, my mind was open. I didn't even know what the vista looked like until I began to experience. And I had little tidbit of information about money, about finance, about infrastructure, about IRS codes. I had no clue what I didn't know until I was older than the age of 60. It's embarrassing. In fact, when I learned the word index alone, I wanted to kick myself. And I jokingly say, I was serious. I wanted to kick myself, yet it was physically impossible for me to do it. And so, thus, my priority for advancing information about literacy, financial education, to facilitate among all of us a level of understanding so that we are no longer hoping, wishing, and trying to maintain faith without information and action about our money options, opportunities, realities. We're actually peeling back the layers, whether it's books, whether it is the insight of experts who've done it and done it well and sustained financial independence because they know the systems, whether it's peeling back the rules, the regulations that inform the nature of how money works where we're at, whether we're in the US or we're some other country, how money works. And there's some fundamental rules of money that are real, independent of where people are at. All of us should know the rules of money. So we think of money in terms of covering our expenses, being debt free, having savings to cover emergencies, possessing a set of knowledge and skills that allows you, I, we, all of us to make informed and effective decisions with all of our financial resources. Yeah, that's what financial literacy is. It's the ability to understand and use various financial skills, skills around income, skills around savings, budgeting, financial planning, planning for sources of income, planning for the uses and actually using the money for short term, long term, and generational purposes. Understanding how to structure your assets, your financial assets, in a way where you're able to outpace inflation, address liabilities. In fact, ensure you have no liabilities. If they are, they're strategic. Ensure that you're able to pay your fair share of taxes, yet minimize, not where you're overwhelmed. Oh my goodness. When I combine federal, state, local, I'm over 50% of my income goes to taxes. No, you can manage that. You can reduce that significantly. And not just the 1%ers or the 3%ers or the 5%ers. All of us have access to the same IRS codes, the same local financial laws, to the same financial instruments. And yet, if we remain in the area of a lack of knowledge, everything appears to be closed to us. When we allow ourselves to have our hearts and minds open with the right guidance, the information becomes not only available, we realize, oh my God, it's ubiquitous. It's all around us. How did I not know? How did I didn't hear of what? The Power of Zero by David McKnight. A little book provided me and so many people I've shared it with such an insight about the nature of money in this country. Did you know, for example, that Social Security, when it was created, there was at least 40, I think it's 41 or 42 people working, paying into Social Security to one person who was retired. And by the time this book came out, actually before, there was 2.8 people working to one person retired. No wonder there's an assumption by the experts that we will have no Social Security money available to retirees by 2035. That is, unless something significantly changes. You read this and you understand some things about the history of the debt of the country. Why? You don't read the details of what's happening now. That's in so many other books I can share with you. You just pay attention. All you have to do is go to online and do a search. What's the debt for the country? And clearly find in so many different so-called legitimate press that it's well in excess of 30 million, let's get this straight, 30 trillion now. And also learn from so many reliable sources that there's insufficient dollars coming into or going into the federal government, going into through the Treasury, through the IRS processes to pay the interest on the national debt, let alone towards the debt. And so it's not surprising that the last 30 years plus, there's been economists, there's been mathematicians, there's been experts studying the nature of our economy, the markets, the nature of our infrastructure, financial infrastructure, and saying to Congress, saying to political appointees, saying to presidents, and it's independent of whether they're Republican, Democrat, independent. It's the math, folks. It has no respect of party. Saying increase taxes, double taxes, and then we won't worry for the near future. The question is, if we go back to where taxes had been, 90%, yes, folks, taxes had been as high as 90%, and definitely 70%, even in my lifetime. In the 70s, it was 70%. That's why Bina was studying the tax code, and he found 401k. Now, his intent is not what ultimately occurred, and we can talk about that in another episode. And yet, he was working for corporations, for wealthy, trying to help them figure out how they wouldn't have to pay 70% of their income in taxes. So there's many, 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 many stories then and afterwards. Now the top level tax rate at the federal level is 37%. And last year, what was attributed to our current president, taxes increasing to 43 point something percent. Listen, folks, I'm mentioning some of these tidbits that are very important, that are real facts, because I want you to understand the power you have to outshine anyone that I've met, even the most brilliant billionaires I know. One in particular who can run circle around everybody I know in terms of money. And yet he knows he doesn't know what he doesn't know. and he's constantly learning. So that person who's doing well is constantly learning. Wow, we have a lot to learn. Not really. We have a lot to learn that's appropriate for ourselves because we have goals, hopefully, that are part of our dreams that have been operationalized in terms of a big vision and then further operationalized in terms of action steps. But to get to financial literacy, you got to do more than just hope that I can achieve my plan. You need to understand the rules of money, how the systems work within the country that you're in. In the United States, we have a bunch of codes. And among the most significant codes are those within the IRS, Internal Revenue Service, the IRS codes. And I can just mention 5 in particular. I'm just going to mention one, 7702A. If you don't know that, go to the IRS code, check it out. Or contact us, contact me. Because the power that we have is so great that if folks who were protesting years ago about the 1%, and I mean, it was massive, it was extraordinary. If they just simply said, or I should say more remarkably said, let's ensure financial literacy so there is 100% of folks in this country, or at least 90%. We flipped the numbers, we flipped the percentages. 90% have a clue of how to clarify what they want and pursue it. And I'm going to tell you, folks, the answers to what people do that leads to their ongoing accumulation of assets to allow them to achieve what they want to achieve that's big. Initially, it's about the self. Arguably, it comes back to the self. But it's about, I want things. I want a house. I want a car. I want, things for my family. In fact, I want a family and I've got to have resources for that. Then it becomes, I want to build a business. I want that business to really have an impact. And the way it can have an impact, I have to deliver something that people need. Oh my goodness, I get to influence them locally and then internationally. Oh my God, who am I? Multi-billionaire because I've done something, I've given people something that they need, and they'll always need it until they don't. Then it becomes something bigger than that. Oh my God, I got so much, I can't even use it. And then you say, how do I pay it forward? How do I give it to others so that it has an impact generation after generation after generation after generation? You know where I'm going, or at least I hope you do. So the financial literacy on the surface, yes, it's about income, it's about savings, it's about budgeting, it's about financial planning, it's about financial management. And I can talk about enhancing credit, paying off bad debt. I can talk about evaluating trade-offs in relationship to the plan, and that's most viable or practical and best options, enhancing credit, ensuring you've got identification, theft, prevention, and protection. I can go on and on. Using sound products to grow your money, the sooner the better. Literally using, ensuring that you can compound your money where it's hundreds of thousands of dollars in response to your initial investments. Can you imagine taking $1? I know I'm jumping around, but I purposely am because I really want you to feel where I'm coming from. Can you imagine taking $1 and turning that dollar over, doubling it 20 times? Someone who's brilliant, and I know a lot of you are brilliant who are checking this out. You've already done the math. With taxes, it's 28,000 plus. Without taxes, oh my God. Can you imagine paying tax on the dollar and it's done? And then putting it in an instrument where it compounds, it grows, it literally without tax implications when you pull it out, now you've got over $1 million. You've done the same thing. You've taken that $1 after tax and you've turned it over 20 times. Wow. That's what I'm talking about, folks. So people are so busy doing what? Working hard for money? It's not about the money, right? It never is. It's about what the money will be able to, it's the purchasing power of that money. It's the ability of that money to give us something that's much more invaluable, maybe also intrinsic at a profound level, that's sustainable, that allows us to leave legacies. Traditional education does what? Exposes to basic and remarkable, insightful, innovative business practices. The whole world of economics, macro, micro, mathematical theories, equations, how to operationalize certain equations to understand even how to compound our dollars, for example. Expose us to banking, budgeting to some degree, investment strategies, money management. Doesn't give us details about the codes of the country, the secrets of the country that are available in plain sight that will enable someone to go from earning $40,000 a year to within 25, 30 years or less, having millions of dollars and still just earning 40,000 a year, or leveraging multiple means through financial services industry to bring in multiple sources of income and witness within 5, 10, 15 years multiple thousands, millions, and more dollars in order to get back to what is the priority, that vision that literally is drives the reason why you get up in the morning, you sustain your momentum, etc. When you understand and leverage financial literacy and you become literate in the area of financial everything that's important for your life, you can not only achieve what you want, you will transform your dreams. Your dreams won't be the dreams they were initially. So, again, what is financial literacy? I'd say it's essential life competency. We all use money, we all need money. Until we don't, we need money, and we need to understand how to possess, develop, sustain the appropriate knowledge, and use sound skills, relevant skills, engaging continuously in that learning and employing the knowledge and skills to achieve the goals that we've established for ourselves. So it's using smart decisions, financial decisions that results in the desired financial outcomes. People have said it, they've said it for years, they'll say it better than me. It's not about how you say it, it's about cutting to the chase, making right financial decisions in personal finance. I mentioned the rules of money. There are some concrete rules of money. We're not going over all those details. If you want to know, contact me. We're going to go over more in subsequent sessions, but not that. But let me tell you, when you understand the rules of money, wow, get out the way. Or you don't need people to get out of your way. You'll create ways that you can't even imagine right now without the rules of money. How do you have money work for you, harder for you than you work for it? How to protect your money once you have it. How to access your money without having to pay taxes twice or 3 times. Do you know many of us are paying taxes not just once on our money, twice or more? We help you understand that's not necessary. There's a way, legal way. In fact, it's the best way. It's the strategic and smart way. It is the less free way, free stress way, I should say. And it's a less expensive way to move forward, is to only pay taxes once. I know you're probably wondering, what do you mean? All of us pay taxes once. No, the vast majority of us pay taxes on our money multiple times. Yes, legally, when you earn money, you only pay taxes on that money once. Think about it. Think about it. What happens to that money? Are you investing it? And when you take it out, are you paying taxes on the growth? Think about that. When you put it in other places, it doesn't matter whether it's a bank, a credit union, or whatever it is. A CD is part of that bank or mutual fund, whatever. When you draw it out, what's happening? It's much more than I'm sharing. But imagine this. Imagining having all relevant facts for you, not all the facts that exist, relevant facts to help you get to where you want to get to. I'm actually, before I finish that question, I'm thinking about a gentleman I dated many years ago. His brother, one of his brothers, younger brothers, brilliant. The guy was, he was his body, his mind, his soul was a haven for historical facts. You ask him about wars, he could tell you about wars across the country and beyond in other countries in all of the regions of the world. It was incredible. Ask him about food. He'd tell you about the etiology of certain foods and plant life. And it was like, excuse me? Really? Why do you know all of this? I'm intrigued though. What about this? And then he would just go deep and he would quote, and it was like he had a photographic memory, and he might have. I never asked him, but he had all this brilliant information. He even had financial knowledge. I don't know to what degree because I was sufficiently ignorant. I didn't even know what questions to ask him there. The brother was brilliant. His brother died, never using that brilliance. So he knew a lot. He didn't use that brilliance for himself. And it's not surprising he wasn't able to use it for his loved ones. He loved, and he loved deeply. Brilliant, smart, talented brother who relegated himself, and I won't go into more details because he has the right to have anonymity in the spirit world. If the power of knowledge and not using it, some people joke, and I, as a longtime educator with spending nearly 40 years in higher education because I loved it and the power of it to open the heart, to free the mind, to actually expose ourselves to people, different values, different understandings, different ways of being. I love education. And yet, just having knowledge and skills without applying it, without using it, is what we reduce to education. I'm sorry. I say that, and I'm apologizing to myself, not because that was my wiring. It's because I witnessed and I was part of a system that didn't change enough. Whether it was K through 12, I didn't work in K through 12, or community college, I did, or universities, four-year institutions, I did. Remarkable people there. And so many are trying to, and some of them are at their individual level of a classroom or of a service center, changing the scripts, transforming inside out so that people are actually applying what they're learning to add value to their lives and to move forward, to change the nature of humanity or change the nature of humans into a more humane species. And yet the infrastructure, the systems, the rules and regulations tend to take that ratcheting up to transform and harms it and breaks it down and reduces it back to what it was before. I'm still hopeful that those of you brilliant people out there across the globe, certainly within the US and within many of our institutions of higher learning in particular, are sufficiently brilliant to transform education inside out, as opposed to having the rest of us, now that I'm out, impose. We do it in partnership. Because what happens when we use that brilliant knowledge that we acquire, when we apply the skills we develop? Oh my gosh, we learn. We allow ourselves to do what I call it fail forward. So what is failing forward? That is learning something anew, not fully understanding it, applying it, and not necessarily applying it perfectly. Because we're not seeking perfection. We're seeking use and learning and growth. That's what scientists do, constantly tweaking, constantly adding to the equation, listening, reconstructing a hypothesis. That's what we did as researchers in higher education. That's what we've done as educators. That's what we get to do in financial services all day long. And yet we've got so many examples of excellence, we don't have to fail for our clients. We fail in our learning, and our clients reap the benefits of the learning. Because there's so many checks and balances throughout our work, because we're the most regulated industry in this country. And I'm so proud to be part of such, because it gives us flexibility to provide the best and the brightest, and yet it ensures the accuracy of what we do for individual clients. I know I'm jumping around a little bit. And I told you that story, or shared that story, about this loved one, brilliant man. I mean, if you saw him, you say, oh my God, he's gorgeous, he's tall, he's brilliant, he's smart. And yet he had an internal challenge that kept him constrained, even though folks around would not say he was ever constrained, yet he was. So he never lived his brilliance. And we want you, all of us, to live our brilliance. Our brilliance is far beyond just the knowledge we have, just the skills we know how to apply. That's education. Genius is applying it, using it in a way that adds value. So financial literacy is exactly what I told you earlier, what we've shared earlier. It is the ability to understand and to be able to apply certain skills that ensure you're financially where you need to be in order to achieve the ends you seek to achieve. That's it. It's not that phenomenal. And yet the fact that K through 12 have very little education in financial, or sheer finance, very little education about the basics. What are the rules of money? A 5-year-old can get the rules of money. I know, I've witnessed it. Let alone an 80-year-old who's learning for the first time, who chose to leverage her brilliance in other areas, learning the capacity to take hard-earned money and place it in instruments she always had access to, and ensure she has income for life. Wherever you're at the spectrum, we want you to continue to learn so that 90%, 95%, 100% of us in this country, ideally, are financially literate, because in doing so, we ensure that the nature of our economy is thriving. Undoubtedly, it will transform, because the economy currently doesn't serve everybody. Let's be clear. There are structures, there are systems, there are rules and regulations that undermine different types of people, different sets of people, whether it's because they're low income across the board, whether it's because they live in certain parts of the regions of the country, whether it's because they've got local ordinances, whatever it is. When people have education and they apply it, all of a sudden the possibilities are endless. More importantly, the ability to heal, to facilitate, to create, to ensure. Let me tell you something, folks. Our essence is brilliant. We just need to get back to it. Those of us who've lost our way. I think we're born with innate talents. And when we remember them, even though we're told a lot as a kid, some of us are, it's beaten out of us. And let me tell you something. A lot of folks I work with now, they were harmed verbally, physically, otherwise, and yet they're thriving because they didn't buy those messages. They didn't buy those messages. And then there are some who were treated beautifully. They were in very comfortable families, and they didn't have a way. They didn't understand that they could build. And luckily for them and for us, they found us, those of us who remind them of their inherent greatness, that they have something no one else has, and that's something we all need. And then they leverage the rest of us to read, to reflect, to go deep, to experiment, to fail forward, to learn, to actually succeed, and then realize, okay, I've succeeded there. Let me move the benchmark. Let's move, and get forward. And all of a sudden, oh my God, we honor here faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun. Why? Those 5 F's. And I got to tell you, when I started and I came into business with a group of people, and they're all over the country and they're in other countries, and led by two remarkable folks. I've mentioned them many times, Eric and Sandra Osen. The organization or the agency is Pinnacle Elite. Humble people, they don't know what they don't know. And yet what they do know is quite a bit. And what they choose to do is share what they know, even though they never have to even think about working a day in a life. And at least the next, maybe 6 generations of their family do not either. And yet they choose to lead by developing leaders because that's what leaders do. And so those who didn't know, even though they were reared in wonderful conditions and comfortable conditions, didn't know their capacity, they get to leverage all of us to get there. And so financial literacy is much more than just about knowing stats, complex financial concepts, or even basic financial literacy to make the right financial decisions in terms of one's personal finance. In fact, it's so powerful that someone, and we know many people who dropped out of high school, many people who never even went to college or dropped out of college because they needed what they needed at that moment and they couldn't wait. And we know folks who earned PhDs, MBAs, other degrees, MDs, law degrees, who've also leveraged what we've leveraged. But let's be clear, whether one dropped out, became financially literate, and are doing extremely well, which we know many, or they had a successful education journey with all of its trials and tribulations, and they manifest what we socially say, oh, they did it. They arrived. And yet financially, they knew they had not arrived. Financially, they knew they were illiterate, or at least they felt like they were missing something. I know many of them who chose to slow down and be humble and say, I need to learn. I need to understand what I don't know that I didn't get from my master's degree in business administration, that I did not get as an undergraduate trying to figure out this whole thing around business and marketing and finance. I do well in my business, and I have no clue why when I bring in 150,000, 350,000, a $500,000, at the end of the year, I don't have anything to show for it. When you're financially literate, it's not about just making money. In fact, it's not about that at all. It's about how to leverage people, systems, laws, rules, opportunities to create. So that's why there are folks who can't read or write who are financially wealthy. And people are like, oh, that's unusual. Really? Do a little bit of research. You find some brilliant, caring, giving, smart people who cannot read and write or write, and they're doing very well in business. They're not the norm. I don't recommend it. And yet, it's akin to the young man I saw yesterday. A colleague and I gave a presentation, and wow, we were so appreciative of it. The opportunity to present to students, to administrators, to staff, students, administrators, whatever order, but students, all of them were listening to share the rules of money. And the questions we got were so insightful. One of the people in the room, who I don't think everybody knew I had already met him, Brian, brilliant brother. And he asked some of the best questions. Well, I think you said this. Well, what about this? And what about that? And then one of his friends, not too far from him, said, he's blind. And so I said aloud, yeah, I know he's blind. And he's brilliant. And not to out the friend. And I wanted to make it very plain. There are some people I know who are physically blind, like that young man yesterday, among the most brilliant people I ever met. Arguably, they've used their other senses, heightened sense. This guy told another person who he had just met, says, you speak French. He couldn't even see the woman. All he knew was her first name. And then he says, but you were born in Mexico. You're Mexican. And she was like, how do you know that? Power of using his other faculties, his mental and intuitive. One of the faculty is an intuition. That's a mental faculty. And then his heart's open. So he was receiving throughout the room. He was arguably the most on, and yet they were all on. Think about him, and I think about people like him. So people are like, you must have a degree in order to do this. You must do this in order to do that. No, there's no must anything as it relates to each one of us unless it's important to each one of us. Being educated is invaluable. Being financially literate as part of being educated is essential in this country. Otherwise, we will be left behind. Many of us. And if anyone's left behind, actually, we're all left behind. We cannot flourish. We cannot thrive. We cannot literally transform as a society for leaving large groups of people behind. Large groups of people behind. Large group of females, of males, of women, of men, of children, of elders, of middle age, of young high school graduates, of college students, of you fill in the blank, of tall, of short, of wheelchair bound, of whatever. We cannot afford to leave the homeless behind. We cannot afford to leave any of you behind, wherever you're at, because wherever you're at is a reflection of all of us. And the degree to which you're healthy, able to use your inherent talents, you can add value to all of us, even if we never are honored with the opportunity to meet you. And more importantly, you get to create the life that adds value to you. So interesting as I'm having this conversation with you. So many other thoughts have come to mind, and yet I'm going to stay on this track. I want to remind you, I'm going to ask you the question, do you know the rules of money? Ask yourself that. And if you can't immediately say yes or no, then maybe you don't know. Maybe the no is it. Learn the rules of money. Ask you another series of questions. How has your money worked for you? Has it worked harder for you than you've worked for it? How do you protect your money? Or do you, in fact, protect your money? How do you access your money without having to pay taxes twice? What's the pitfall of not being financially literate? One of the pitfalls is accumulating unsustainable debt burdens. Another is poor spending decisions. Worse off, bankruptcy. Poor credit. Lack of long-term preparation. There's so many more. But more importantly, never achieving the dreams that you literally could map out for yourself. More importantly, could actualize with the right financial resources. And the dreams may be as simple as having a place for your loved ones, whether it's your core nuclear family, extended family, to come have a garden in the backyard, and you have gatherings, you have fresh organic foods that you just get to enjoy. You share the love through what you collectively are creating. Could be traveling all over the world, making certain you get to every part of the planet before you transition. It could be ensuring that your children got to experience specific cultures, perhaps cultures that reflect your ancestors, cultures that reflects others' ancestors. So they understand the power of being in community, being in partnership, being in collaboration. Why is financial literacy important? It's not just the pitfalls to watch out for. Let's assume you're not driven by fear, and hopefully you're not. But fear does drive a lot of people, and we just recognize it. And the way you get beyond fear, you should just take the first step. Then you take the next step. You take the next step. Before you realize it, you've already achieved what you were fearful that you wouldn't achieve. And you're looking back and saying, I'm not certain exactly why I was fearful, but I don't have time for that right now. And you keep moving. You keep moving. Why is financial literacy important? Knowledge of the financial system. That's why it's important. The ability to understand financial markets. So when you see the trends up and down, you're not just, well, I think it's good because it's gone down. It's bad because it's going down. Well, it all depends upon how you engage the market. Sometimes going down is not inherently bad. It is if you're in certain instruments, and you can only benefit if it goes up. But if you're into calls and puts and some other kinds of things based upon your expertise and your experiences, then it's a different deal. You need to know what you don't know in order to understand. So understand the stock market, the indices, and so much more. Greater clarity about the roles of businesses to the economy, understanding the relationship among all the different financial industries. There is a relationship. Yeah, on the surface, banks are over here, credit unions over there, insurance companies are over there, the government's over here, and corporations over there, and nonprofits over there. Listen, this is one environment. This is an ecosystem that is extremely remarkable. And when you understand that there is literally a lot that binds all these, and when one collapses or one grows, it affects the others in different ways. Well, you may not want to know all those details, but let me tell you, even having basic financial literacy, you'll better appreciate the infrastructure that exists and have a better sense of what systems may need to change or do need to change in order to enhance the overall ecosystem. So I'm talking about infrastructure. Let me tell you something. One thing among the many that it's critical to understand is infrastructure. We tend to think of facilitating goods and services and ensuring distribution to get to the ends, whether it's education, whether it's hospitals or healthcare, whether it is in support of existing other businesses, right? That fuels the economy, that fuels local communities, etc. The infrastructure that we take for granted, and we tend to think, oh, I got to pay taxes once a year. This time of the month, right? Some of us have taken care of it in January, others February, and some of us have to delay it until the end of the year. But October, for example, get it all done before October. Knowing the IRS codes, knowing the tax advantages, knowing the protections, knowing the ability to create legacy. Yeah, all that stuff is in IRS codes. And who leverages it? Those in the know. So I remember again the marches, the campaigns, the millions of people across the U.S. and then took off beyond the U.S. who were in the streets demanding Wall Street come out and change its practices. No one talked about what do you mean? I hope out of that, I don't know, because I don't know what I don't know, that there's a growing number of people who are providing more financial literacy beyond just through social media and hoping everybody captures it. That's a powerful way. Yet, in person, up close, looking at your finances, helping you understand what your FIN is. Do you even know what FIN is, folks? Financial independence number. Do you know what that is? And when was the last time, I love to use Dr. Quinde question, and I'm sure he and his wife ask their team all the time. When was the last time you had a financial health checkup? And we know people routinely go to have a dental checkup, right? Cleaning, etc. Medical checkup, especially in the given COVID. But when was the last time you had a financial health checkup? Well, that's what we do. And we do it in a way where I don't care where the folks are at or how much money they have, what their priorities are, they tend to be stunned. Oh my goodness, that's my information. Using those assumptions, and the system gives them this brilliant information. It's theirs, it's not ours. And then they get to see, oh, here's where my gaps lie if I have a gap. I have one person who had no gap, who wanted to get something from me just because she valued me. I said, no, you don't have a gap. You're fine. In fact, your goals are this, you have this, you're perfectly aligned. You're in your 70s, you did well. I'm proud of you. You make this tweak, you'll even be better. Wow. Financial needs analysis. When was the last time you had that? If you've not had it recently, take advantage of us, of others who have the expertise and the sustaining power, revealing that they know what they're talking about. They're licensed. They're not just, I won't even throw out a name to suggest a gender or perspective. There's someone who is licensed, has expertise, and can share it with you. There's so many books, folks. I can mention authors. I mentioned one because I really want everybody to read this. The Power of Zero. I'm looking at oh my God, The Laser Fund by Andrew and his sons, brilliant sons, who I get to leverage weekly. The Retirement Miracle by Patrick Kelly. I mean, wow. Who else? Robert Kiyosaki, his various books and his teams emphasizing cash flow quadrant and more than that to help people get out of the old thinking into a new growth mindset. Wow. Understanding that tax strategies for high net worth individuals is available to all of us. Understanding that compounding your money, the various instruments available to the ultra wealthy, they're available to all of us. Remember this. You get to dream as big as you want. The power in you is to be that leader of your life. We call it the CEO of you, and actually pursuing that big dream. And the degree to which you pay yourself first, ensure you have a plan that you operationalize. Oh my God, you're better off. Remember, you pay yourself first. We've said this over and over again. Oh, I've got bills. We understand that. And we want you to function with integrity and address those bills. Whatever the percent is, you start where you can start. If it's only 1%, you start. 1% is big if that's what you can do. 5% is big. That's what you can do. 10% is big. That's what you can do. You want to get as close to 50% of savings. What do you mean 50%? I mean exactly what I just said. As close to 50% of savings as much as you can. And yes, you're going to have fun because you're going to place it in instruments that compound, that work for you. You're going to place it in instruments where you can access it when you need to, tax advantaged. No wink here. This is real. And then you can do the things you need to do while your money continues to grow. I know. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're like, got to go on to another video because I'm confused. When you don't know what you don't know, it's easy to be confused. Let me tell you, I was there. And some things I'm still confused on because I am building the base, my foundation. I've been doing this my entire life since I was 5. Wow, who knows where I'd be? Probably be talking at a level that makes no sense because I would have been leveraging all the experts. that hopefully I would be talking at a level that makes even more sense, because the degree to which you really understand this stuff, you can simplify. And I'm working to simplify, to simplify, to simplify. And thank you, Tomoko. You're absolutely right. This month is of April every year. April 2022, this year, is Financial Literacy Month. So we're on a campaign. We want you to increase your level of knowledge. And I love the saying, increase your knowledge by 1% every day. Oh my gosh. And in 100 days, you'll be 100% enhanced. Increase. You don't have to try to do everything overnight. Just increase. Take advantage of my contact information. Contact me anytime. Our team are available almost 24/7. Yes, we do sleep, folks. We believe in the value of sleep. We believe in the value of spending time with loved ones. And increasingly, I'm doing that. I'm leaving the 2-3 hours in the past, although I'm wired to still want to do that. 2-3 hours of sleep. Now I'm up to 5 to 6. Oh, it's hard for me to even say that. It's kind of embarrassing, but that's real. But we're still available. So leverage us, contact us, and whether it's me or a colleague, all of us with brilliant insight, we are here to help you. We want you to understand how, wherever you're at, you can increase your cash flow, and you can have your money work harder for you than you work for it. Wherever you're at, if you've got children, grandchildren, nieces, and nephews, you can take advantage of what we provide, $1 million plans, so that they are prepared for college and life overall. It's called legacy planning in the bigger scheme of things. There's much more on the front end beyond just the legacy itself. We help you with emergency funds. And let me tell you, too many people got caught with COVID and had loved ones. Too many of us know loved ones transition and are still having loved ones transition. And we need to have proper protection to take care of ourselves every single month. So if you have to start off like the textbook says, 3 months of savings, 6 months you move to, and at least 12 months of savings. That means replacing your income times each one of those months. You want to have emergency funds. And if you don't, we can help you understand how to best do that wherever you're at. And the next thing is proper protection. There's a lot to that. We won't cover that now. We'll spend a whole session on that in the coming week. Building wealth, only building wealth that does things that are routinely done by those in the know to ensure that you continue to build, also protecting that wealth. There are some fundamental things available, folks, to all of us, especially those in the United States. We are advantaged, and yet too many of us don't know it. And because we don't know it, we are not positioned to take advantage of it. So you plan, you continue to plan. We want you to plan where you can be effective and successful with the right information. So without further ado, I want to thank you as usual and encourage you to make this month and a remarkable month. My team and I are doing the same. We know we are the antidote that we're looking for. We're always the solution. Yet we leverage each other in order to understand how what we know and what we can do can better result in what we want. So, Wado, and blessings to all of you.